Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey into the history of English literature, an introductory course to students of the Islamic University at the English department in Gaza. So when we studied Shakespeare as a dramatist and as a poet, we moved on to speak about more dramatists in the golden age of drama, the age of Queen Elizabeth and King James I, the heyday of the golden age of drama. Shakespeare was one of several dramatists and playwrights of that time. Last time we discussed two important names. Can you remind me?
Christopher Marlowe and Ben Jonson.
And Ben Jonson. What's the major difference between Marlowe and Shakespeare, please?
Marlowe went to the university.
Okay.
He wrote.
So number one, Christopher Marlowe was a university wit and a university graduate. And this term, university wits, describes people, writers, authors who studied at either Oxford or Cambridge, no Harvard.
Yes.
The second major difference, please.
Marlowe gives every character a highly poetic language.
Okay, very good.
And that's influenced by his studies
Education.
at
Oh,
university.
interesting. I like how you link between his studies and the fact that he insists on a particular style.
Yes.
Not sure if you heard this story about Abu Tammam, the famous Arab poet. Many told him, Abu Tammam, why do you keep writing highly sophisticated elite poetry that not many people can understand? Why don't you write ordinary poetry so people can understand, all people? He said, why don't people understand my highly sophisticated poetry? So there are trends and attitudes. Some people want to write everything poetic, but some people want to write for different audiences. Okay, we have two major works for Marlowe. Remember, Marlowe preceded Shakespeare. For so many, Shakespeare learned and from and was inspired by Marlowe, especially his play, The Jew of Malta. The Jew of Malta, where Barabbas, remember?
Yes.
A Jewish character is the main character, and we compared Barabbas to Shylock in a way. Can someone give me more insight about this? The differences between Barabbas and, please.
Barabbas were very deep evil.
Okay.
And but Shylock, in some situations, you can feel sorry about him and something like that. But Barabbas was even
creepy.
he used his daughter
Yeah.
in his revenge.
How evil is that?
Yes.
So, in a way, Shakespeare humanizes the outsider, intruder, the Jewish man in the Christian community. He humanizes him. Sometimes we feel sorry for him, for what happens to him. But Barabbas is almost complete evil. Someone who uses his own daughter as a sex object to seduce someone so people can kill themselves. And when she refuses, like later on, when she realizes how evil her father was, what does he do to her?
Poison.
He poisons her.
And he poisoned also.
He kills her.
all the nuns.
Causes the death of many people. What else can you say about Barabbas and Shylock, please?
The mask.
No, Barabbas and
Barabbas.
Shylock. Which is more, in a way, more artistic. Because in literature, listen, there shouldn't be absolute evil in literature. If characters are too good or too bad, but if it is a bad character who does good things or a good character who does bad things, we kind of, in a way, relate sometimes.
Yes. It's similar to us.
Because if they are too good, too bad, it's like
Heroes.
angels and demons or the devil. So Shakespeare is more colorful. And the same thing happens for Othello, more colorful. Ithamore, the black character in The Jew of Malta,
He was the
is
first
also,
nigger
in a
who
way,
started.
in so many ways, is pure evil. because he helps Ithamore to kill as many people as possible. So this is a tragedy. There's blood, there's revenge. What else did we say about Marlowe? More? Marlowe? Yeah? Marlowe.
Marlowe.
You like the masks. Tell us about the masks. Yeah, okay. Okay, the masks.
The mosque. There are plays that are presented in the mosque. They are presented for kings and queens and royal families.
Okay.
Also, they are presented for one time.
Okay.
Only once.
It's been acted.
Okay.
And the actors are
Not professional actors, but members of the royal and noble families. What do we learn from the masks? What does it indicate about how the king, because the masks became famous during the reign of King James I, who succeeded Queen Elizabeth. What does it tell us about literature and literary production of that time? The mask.
Kings appreciate
Yeah.
literature and love things.
Remember King Alfred in the Middle Ages?
Yes.
Now, many in the old English literature, we saw the church taking care of a lot of writing down many of the poems, and now the kings, the royal family, the monarchy in general started paying more attention to literature, because literature is powerful, it's important, because literature can change our way, the way we think, the way we behave, the way we react. So they realized that they have to bring many poets and playwrights closer to them, and they became their patrons. They would give them money and provide them with protection in exchange for praise, for good poetry. So King James brought the whole theater inside. Instead of going to the Globe, Shakespeare, he brought it inside, and many playwrights wrote several masks. And a mask is a short play with noble themes special for the king and the royal family. It would be performed on certain occasions only once, etc., etc. And a famous playwright who wrote is Ben Jonson. And the Queen, the Mask of Queens or something. And it's funny how, remember when we first mentioned Ben Jonson, we said he was arrested more than once, probably for being critical of somebody. But now he is buddies with the king. And he's a famous man. We're going to get back to Ben Jonson as a critic. So today we continue. We speak about certain issues, again, related to drama, mainly during King James I. Drama that is described as the Jacobean. Again, Elizabethan and Jacobean. Although Shakespeare is both, he's generally described as Elizabethan. So King James was one of the kings who, we'll see this probably later on, he loved literature and writing and artistic expressions. It was during his reign that the Bible, for the first time, was officially translated into English. Can you imagine this? England is a Christian country for almost 1,000 years. And the religious book, the Bible, was in Latin. And this is the first translation, official translation here. 1,000 years later. But again, it shows how the king played a major role in helping poets and playwrights and literary figures. And remember, this always comes at a price. Because if you are friends with the king, probably you're not going to be critical of him in your writing. So this is some kind of censorship, self-censorship. Like, I don't want to write this because probably the king is going to get angry or something. So because of King James, we have the masks, mainly the masks, and Ben Jonson wrote a famous one called The Mask of Queens. What are masks? Again, they are short plays acted generally only once. For Shakespeare, for the Globe, the play would be performed more than once, sometimes 20, 30 times, because it would be famous and people from all around, not only London, but other cities would be coming and pay money to watch. And you pay some pennies, you stand and watch close to the stage. If you are rich, You have more money, you stand on the row, you sit on the rows up. But here, this is a play performed inside the palace, the court of the king. The actors are not professional actors, but mainly members of the royal and noble families. The themes are generally themes about the noble life, the lives of the rich people inside the. You want them to appreciate you writing your play. You don't bring the poor people again on stage to them. You write something, and this is how. Remember, probably once I mentioned this, how sometimes the audience, the readers, can control what you read. Because eventually when you write something, you want people to read and appreciate. So you carefully understand and study your audience. And you tailor your message, your text, in a way accordingly.
Yes.
Many people believe in this. Many say, no, I want to write because writing is an important self-expression. Whether people like it or not, this is for me, I write for myself. But here, people wrote for others generally. So we move here to another important figure, Thomas Kyd, with the Spanish tragedy. The Spanish tragedy is said to be very important here because it was again a play that inspired many other plays. It's generally described, as you can see here, as tragedy of blood. Tragedy of blood. In so many ways, people believe that during the Elizabethan age, because of the heroism and the knights and the battles and the wars,
It's always ended up with
they brought this on stage. So there is always somebody wanting to take revenge. Remember that even the sparrow wanted vengeance from the cats wild and tame. So the Thomas Kyd with the Spanish tragedy is a play that is said to have inspired Shakespeare's Hamlet and many other such plays where there is a lot of death, blood, and destruction on the stage because, I don't know, again, the audience, the people of that time loved violence, loved battles, loved to see this. I don't know how we can explain this, but generally this, in a way, reflects something inside, the psychology, or it helps us release. Because sometimes if you release the anger, the violence, you don't do it yourself. If you watch others do this. And some people say, no, this is how people learn to be violent. It's not the other way around. So there's an argument here. Like Hollywood movies. If you watch too much violent movies, you're going to turn up to grow up violent. But people say, no, this is to help them release the anger and the violence inside in a creative way. Because at the end of the day, when you watch the movie, the good are rewarded and the bad are punished. But still, it teaches us that the bad can be punished violently without even courts and everything. So, however, in the Spanish tragedy, it's exactly the opposite of Hamlet. In Hamlet, we have a son trying to take revenge for the death of his father. Here, it's vice versa. In the Spanish tragedy, as the name suggests, it's a tragedy. But here we have a father who wants to take revenge for the death of his son. And this is generally called, again, blood tragedy. Why? As the name suggests, there's a lot of blood, death, destruction, violence, and loss on the stage. On the stage. Okay? And like we said here, during the time, the reign of King James I, plays grew more and more violent.
Why?
That's a tough question. Why?
Is it
Why?
the life they live?
Generally, literature mirrors life. When you write, people who wrote 100 years ago didn't mention mobile phones and the internet and Twitter and Facebook because they didn't exist. And this is a very simplistic answer. But usually you reflect something you feel, something around you. Either because there's too much of it around you, so you reflect it, or because you want this. So in your book, you could, for example, write a story about how women struggle for their rights, for equality in Gaza. Because you think that women don't have equal rights. So they struggle for this. Or you write because you want a world, you depict a world, an ideal world where women have equal rights. So it depends on why you basically write. But too much violence in literature reflects, at least, if not violence in real life, at least a desire for the audience, for the readers, to read, to see, to watch violence. And we'll see how this thing backfires. When you watch, please, I posted probably something from Hamlet on the Facebook group. If you Google or go to YouTube and search for Hamlet, the BBC production, please watch some of the plays. Hamlet is a good way to start. I'm not sure how you're going to feel, but in the past they say, like, tragedies help us to heal, to release the anger from inside of us. That could be one reason. People, the writers, the authors wanted to fix the society, to show them that too much violence, see, it doesn't end well. It ends with blood, with death, with destruction. Everybody dies. Because
maybe to show them the results.
Yeah, maybe. So next we move to our final dramatist figure here, John Webster. Listen to me. Yes, there was violence and blood and destruction, but many also playwrights wanted to bring new themes. And we have a wonderful man here, John Webster. He composed several plays. Two important plays he composed are The White Devil and the Duchess of Malfi. Again, The White Devil and the Duchess of Malfi by John Webster. If you look at the name, Duchess is the female of Duke. In Shakespeare, generally, it's a man that is in the title of the play. Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, King Lear. Although King Lear is largely about his daughters, but King Lear dominates. Even when there is a woman in the title, a man is there. Romeo and Juliet. So a woman can't be there even in the title. And even when the woman is alone in the title, it's like taming the shrew. You know, Tarwid al-Sharisa by Shakespeare. So even if the woman is in the title, she's not good. A man is taming her, in a way. But here we have an author who brings women and puts them in the title of the plays and makes them the major characters of the whole play. The White Devil and the Duchess of Malfi are two important plays because they bring women as the main characters and they show women as victims to male violence. Male violence. We've seen, for example, Lady Macbeth. We spoke about Lady Macbeth. But generally, she pushes Macbeth to do evil. And she commits suicide. We've seen Ophelia. But Ophelia is too meek, too weak, too submissive that she dies. Maybe an accident, maybe suicide. But here we have women presented as victims, not victimizers. Victims of male violence, and this is why John Webster is important. So more social issues, more themes, more characters started to appear on the stage by time. But don't forget, women were not allowed to be on stage so far. So a man would be playing soft voice, and no beardless, soft voice young man would be playing a role of the woman.
Was it a bad idea for Jean to present women as victims? Did it affect him?
I'm not sure, but we can read more about this. How popular was he? How many times were these plays, performed on stage? We can read more about this, so we can compare him. He can't be compared to Shakespeare. No one can. But we can have an impression. We can see, for example, how many times Romeo and Juliet was performed, and see how many times these were performed.
Did it affect him by
Like people hated him
Yeah,
We need
give
to-
women the power to stand up.
and struggle and, speak up. He was empowering women in a way.
Did it affect him?
That's a very good question. We need to read more about how he was received. Very interesting question. Thank you. Maybe you can look this up. Okay? Okay, so finally for today, there's a quiz, by the way, but don't panic. It's not 4 marks. Now, this is the golden age of drama. This is Shakespeare, Marlowe, Johnson, Thomas Kidd, and John Webster. We have the play being the major genre then. However, the drama attracted more violence. Drama was, in so many ways, more violent than ever before. And for many people, this was not good. Remember, every time, everywhere, there will be people who hate literature, poetry, drama, stage, theater, or every kind of artistic expression, even sculptures. So when we see how evil ISIS is destroying some heritage, some legacies, this didn't start here. It started long time ago. We spoke about King Henry VIII, remember, who destroyed and burnt down the monasteries and the churches because he had a dispute with the Pope. And we've seen how throughout time and place, sometimes books were burnt. Sometimes authors were killed, executed because they wrote something. So we have the Puritans here. Puritans, it comes from the word pure. Pure, purify, taqi, naqi, tahir, something like this. Puritans, المطهرون, الأتقياء, المتطهر, whatever the name can translate into Arabic. This is a religious group that became very famous in the 17th century. And they hated the theater very much. They didn't look at the theater as an artistic expression, as a literary form, as a very important cultural expression of identity, expression of a whole, culture. They looked at the theater as a source of corruption, a source of violence, a source of sins and vices. So they attacked the theater and the playwrights. They criticized this harshly. They didn't see that plays, even the violent plays, as a possible way of changing and cleansing people and purifying people, even because you should know this. Literature makes us better people because we are exposed to different peoples, different cultures, and we identify with them. We've seen how, again, as Palestinians, we felt sorry for Shylock. We break the barriers of, being different race or different religion, and we feel sorry for him. We don't care whether he is a Zionist or a Jew or Christian or whatever. And that's the beauty of literature. It brings us all together. But this extreme religious sect group said no. Theater is corrupting. Corrupting? What corrupting is? Is destroying the minds, destroying of the people, destroying the future of the society. People learn violence from watching these plays, and eventually, sadly, in 1642, very important date, 1642, they closed the theater. So what happened in 1642? The closure of theater by the Puritans. Why? They believed it was a source of corruption, violence, sins. And it's so sad, heartbreaking how the golden age of Shakespeare and Marlowe and Ben Jonson and Thomas Kidd ended in criticism, censorship, remember?
Yes.
Censorship, play this, don't play this, delete this, and decline. The golden age of drama that lasted about 50 years comes to an abrupt, violent, sudden ending because of the Puritans, who hated drama and viewed it as a source of corruption rather than an artistic expression, an expression of culture. And this is so sad. And I mean it. It's heartbreaking because we could have more people like Shakespeare, like Marlowe. However, listen, people's creativity never stops. I usually describe literature and creativity as, as a river, like water. When there is water, if you close one particular route or path, it eventually goes from another way. Down, up, next, right, left. And literature is part of who we are as human beings. Cats can't say literature. They mew, but their mewing isn't poetry. It could be musical, but not poetry. Dogs bark, and sometimes their barking is musical. There is rhythm there, but there could be a meaning. But humans, only humans, are able to produce literature and poetry and drama. So no matter how much censorship there is, human beings will express themselves in a beautiful way, in a way or another. They will write literature in a way or another. So the closure of the theater didn't mean the end of literature. Didn't mean that people, okay, we're not going to write anymore, we're going to go home. It meant that people tried to find other genres, other methods to express themselves artistically. And that's why after this, people like poets and even playwrights wrote more poetry. And probably sometime after this, about 50 years later or 20 years later or 60 years later, a new very important genre started to rise, the novel. So, okay, you don't want us to write stuff to be performed on the stage? Okay, I write poetry, and poetry is more personal. No one can tell you don't write poetry because you write it for yourself and you write it for a group of close friends. So, again, the Elizabethan golden age, the golden age of drama, the age of Queen Elizabeth, King James I, ended due to the Puritans by criticism, censorship, and decline.
Was it never opened again?
Yeah, but later on. And at this time, people just moved on. You don't just wait at the Globe expecting. And when it opened, it was totally different. People no longer wrote plays, no longer used poetry to write plays. It became prose later on. We'll come probably back to this after 200 years. We'll say the drama comes back again to life. So I'll stop here. Please, if you have a question, do ask. Yeah, question, Shakespeare, Marlowe. If anyone has a suggestion, has an idea, anyone read something, wants to share, please.
So it is still closed for 200 years?
No, less than that. But the theater, the drama was never the same again. It never recovered. It came back to life, but it wasn't as powerful because now people can read. There's the newspaper. You don't have to go out and watch and pay money. You buy the newspaper, you buy the book, and you just read it. Yes? Someone? Good question. Okay, do you want me to ask you questions?
Yes.
Okay, we'll have a quiz now. I ask you to compare and contrast Shylock and Barabbas. Okay, and now I want to ask you this about these two Jewish characters in English literature. I think I have 9 quotes from The Merchant of Venice and The Jew of Malta. And I want you to recognize the speaker, Shylock or Barabbas, and tell me why. So number 1, other than the fact you know this already. So even if you know the quote already, the extract, tell me how this extract reflects either Barabbas or Shylock. Number one. Please, Saba.
Shylock.
Read. Can you read?
Villainy you teach me, I will excuse, and it shall go hard, but I will better than instruction.
I will better the instruction. Ooh. So,
Shylock.
because we read this already, we know this by heart maybe. But how does it reflect Shylock?
When
Antonio
Antonio
wanted to borrow money
yes,
and he couldn't pay the money back. People came to Shylock begging him to just wait more. What do you want to do with a pound of flesh? And he was like,
To bait fish with them.
yeah, to bait fish withal. If it feed nothing,
It will feed my revenge.
feed my revenge. But revenge is also a theme in the Jew of Malta.
Yes.
So this could also be Barabbas, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
The villainy in Barabbas already exists. Here he says, the villainy you teach me.
Uh-huh.
So Shylock is being teach how to be good.
So Barabbas, you think Barabbas is born a villain
Yes, maybe.
because something happened to him that made him go crazy, not to justify his villainy. Because remember why he decided to take revenge? Because his money was taken out from him. His money was taken away by the Christians. So there is revenge there, there's revenge here. So if we don't know this, probably we can say it could be by either. But yeah, this is Shylock. Maybe Shylock is smarter, more sane, because that man is bloody hell. Barabbas is really bloodthirsty. He doesn't think, he just wants to kill. If he thinks, he wouldn't poison his own daughter, for God's sakes. But this is a man who plans, a man who will better the instructions. You teach me villainy, I will do the same to you, but I'm smarter than you.
we plan it.
Next. Please.
You
Abu Ali.
do not die, and if you wrong us, shall we not revenge Shylock?
This is also Shylock, because we know it, right?
Yeah.
But does it reflect anything about Shylock? Please.
Shylock was a weak person.
Was weak?
Weak.
Okay.
Yes. He asked if he said that they are the same people there. Unlike Barabbas, he was a
Who doesn't
strong,
care? He just wants to kill.
Yes, he just wanted to
Excellent here. Shakespeare focuses on the theme of shared humanities. What's the difference between Shylock and Antonio? Nothing. So he's calling for equality. He wanted to be, he's calling for justice here. But in the Jew of Malta, we don't have this. It's just
want revenge.
revenge, death, and killing. Next. Someone read, please.
I cannot revenge but a childish toy and hold there is no sin but ignorance. I think it's barbarous because Shylock saw religion as an important thing. He didn't want to change his religion.
Oh, yes.
But Barabbas
Interesting
didn't care and he gave up his daughter. He wouldn't care about religion.
Probably, yeah, he doesn't. In Shylock, generally embraces his Jewish identity. He mentions this more than once.
Proud to be Jewish.
When he's invited to eat with Antonio, he says, sorry, I don't eat pork. And then he later on he says, has not a Jew eyes. He embraces he's not ashamed, he's a proud Jewish man, which is in a way good. But Barabbas uses the religion, and this is something that reflects his attitude. I count religion, but a childish toy.
Something
Childish. It's a toy, it's a tool.
something silly.
For Raise your hand, read. You know what the serpent is? Serpent is a snake. I gave you the meaning. Yes. Barabbas or Shylock? How does this reflect? Please, read.
Now will I show myself to have more of the servant than the dove, that is more naive than fool. I think this is Barabbas when they talk.
We have the serpent, and the dove. You know dove?
Yes.
So I'll pretend to be the dove, but in reality I am
I'm a
the
snake.
snake. Shylock or Barabbas?
Barabbas.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Huh? Are you sure? Who says it's Shylock? Shylock, why?
Because he pretended to be nice with Antonio by giving him owing him
Are you sure?
money.
He didn't pretend, he just gave.
He lied when he said
Yeah.
the pond is for merry sport, just for fun, just sign a pound of flesh. Come on, you already have the money. But other than this, Shylock was clear. He wanted revenge. When he was asked, he said, I want revenge. And he just
But
said
he
it.
said-
I will execute the villainy, but I'll better. But there's another man who was hiding behind a mask. Someone pretended to be nice and good, but in reality he kills people, he poisons people. And this man is Barabbas. So yeah, thank you. Most of you said it is Barabbas. He pretends to be good because at one moment he pretends to be Christian. He says, oh, I'm a Christian, I converted to Christianity. And he kills everyone around him. So now I'll show myself to have more with the serpent than the dove, because in the past he was the opposite. But he's revealing his true identity. Yeah, there is shared stuff here between him and number 6. Yeah, please.
It will feed my revenge child.
Because you know this?
No.
Why?
He just wants revenge.
He wants justice.
He wants-
I think revenge here comes in the sense of justice more than,
Just
being some villain, blood. Or if he took his pound of flesh, Antonio could have died. So there is that. Death, blood, revenge. But there is one person who doesn't have enough revenge. He kills scores of people, tens of people. Many people are killed. So this man, it will feed my revenge. But someone else, Barabbas, nothing feeds his revenge. Not even killing his own daughter. 7,
Yes.
please.
As for myself, I walk abroad at night and kill sick people groaning under walls. Sometimes I go about and poison wells. Obviously, it is paradoxical.
Okay, I like how you use the word obviously, because you're confident.
Like there are many intending murders, like killing and poisoning.
Yes.
When you go home, please Google this. It's really horrible. One of the most horrible things you will ever read. Someone, in a way, bragging about just walking nonchalantly at night and killing the sick, homeless people and poisoning wells. But this is also a stereotype, a bad, wrong stereotype about Jews. What is Marlowe doing here? What is Barabbas doing here? So it's easy to tell that Shylock didn't want to poison anybody, just wants interests, more money, and justice and revenge. So as for myself, I walk abroad at night and kill sick people groaning under walls. Sometimes I go about and poison wells. You know what wells? What's a well? Yeah, water well, water. Underground water, you get it through wells. 8. Yeah, someone else? Shylock had a daughter also. Don't forget this. Yeah?
This silent daughter suffered his great schemes, I guess Barabbas said that because he forced his daughter to do bad stuff and she didn't want to. Maybe he was convincing her.
Controlling her, be silent, ordering her to. If you get used, if you forgive sufferance, if you tolerate, if you forgive, this breeds ease. In a sense, it means if you let people wrong you and you don't take revenge, people will get used to wronging you all the time. So if someone slaps you, don't give the other cheek. You just punch them and probably kill them. That's his strategy. So he's telling his daughter, don't forgive. Forgiving is not good. Forgiving doesn't make people rethink their crimes or their mistreatment. Forgiving makes people want to wrong you even more, to hurt you even more. And finally, someone read first. Please.
I hate him for he is a Christian. Things past
Christian.
Things past recovery are hardly cured with
Exclamations. I hate him for he is Christian. I hate him for he is a Christian. Not Barabbas? Who was more religious than the other? Probably Shylock. We said he was a proud Jewish person who embraced his heritage and his religion in a way that is probably more obvious than Barabbas. Barabbas, religion for him is a childish toy. I hate him. But he says this when he says, I hate him for he is a Christian, but he later on he says, I also hate him because he calls me a dog. And this is also a beautiful speech from Shylock. One of the beautiful speeches there, where he says, okay, you call me a dog, have a dog money, because now you want to borrow my money. Have a dog money. You spit in my face, and now you want money. You want my money. So there is this religion thing. But more, it's the mistreatment. I will not ask you questions like these in the exam. This is just for fun. But it's good to try to learn to see whether a particular line can reflect the author, the features of the age. Think of this, because later on you will be doing this and when you grow up and become senior students. I'll stop here unless someone has a question. Questions, please? Any question? Okay, thank you very much.